Hi everyone, welcome back to my 1973 series on films that came out in 1973. That was redundant, wasn't it? Yes it is. I tend to stammer a lot and repeat myself and stutter when I make videos like this. It would be helpful if I had someone that I was talking to, talking just to all on my own, basically directly to the camera, is somewhat uncomfortable at times. Especially if it comes to a film that I don't know what I'm going to say on. What I'm going to say about it, if you take my meaning. Here I am going again, just blubbering and blundering my way through this. For those of you who have been watching my series, you might have come across a video that I did for The Devil and Miss Jones. The Devil in Miss Jones, which was an adult film, a hardcore porno film from 1973 that got a lot of respect and acclaim when it came out. And that was recommended to me. It was actually sent to me from New York by my friend Matthew, who I've known for a long time. He sent me 4 other movies in addition to that, and one of them was called Heavy Traffic, which is a film that was written and directed by Ralph Bakshi. Now I was familiar with him superfluously. No, that's not the wrong word. Superficially. I was superficially familiar with Ralph Bakshi because I'd heard about Heavy Traffic, and I'd heard about Fritz the Cat, and I'd actually seen a film that he did called Dirty Duck, but the one that I was most familiar with was a partly live-action and animated film called Cruel World, which came out in the early 90s. Gabriel Byrne, Kim Basinger, and Brad Pitt were in it, so there was some star power behind it. It was probably the biggest and most widely seen production that he's ever been involved in. As I understand it, at one point he wanted to do an animated version of Lord of the Rings a bunch of years back, in the 70s or 80s, when the books were very popular, and of course they're still popular now. He never got the means to do that, I don't think. Or maybe he did like one installment. I really should have researched this a little bit more. Anyway, Heavy Traffic is a movie that I didn't really know anything about, other than the fact that Bakshi was involved, so I knew there was going to be animation in it. And that's sort of his forte, it seems. On this one and on Cool World, it's a mix of live action and animation, although in this film, Heavy Traffic, the animation really sort of takes center stage. The main characters are Michael Caliano, although his father's name at one point is pronounced Calione, so I'm not really sure what's correct there. But Michael Caliano is a 22-year-old kid living with his Italian father and his Jewish mother in New York City. And let me tell you something right now. I've seen plenty of movies set in New York City, but this has to be the grungiest version of New York City I've ever seen in a movie, and I'm including Mean Streets in that, which is something that I've also looked at for the series. Man, it really is dirty and broken, and just like a lot of very, very unsavory characters hanging around all the time. A lot of thugs and what have you. It's really, really something. And even despite the fact that this is a cartoon, it's still the seediness of it really, really, really comes across well. There's a lot of animation over live action backdrops in this. Sometimes there's footage. Say perhaps if you've got characters in a car driving along a street somewhere, they'll have footage through the windows, live action footage passing by buildings and what have you, but it doesn't quite match. The angle's different. It's all thrown together pretty crudely. It's like all these drawn characters over frames of live action film, and occasionally it's just like still frames, like just have a still frame of like a skyscraper or a street going off in the distance, and you have the animated characters walking around. It's sort of thrown together and kind of seat of the pants type of animation. There's some live action segments as well, and I gotta say the closing segment of the movie, which is live action, really made me wonder just what the whole point of the movie is, because something happens to wrap up the animated segment, but then there's additional live action segment involving the live action versions of the characters of Michael Caliano and Carol, who is this black girl who is bartending and he sort of struck up a friendship with. And they were hanging around, seeing if there was a way that they could scrape some money together so they could move to California, get away from all the people in New York that they didn't like. That's sort of the basic plot of the film. He's romantically inexperienced. People, make light of the fact that he's never been with a girl, and there's one crazy sequence in which some of his friends invite him to have sex with a girl on a rooftop, and that doesn't go quite well for the girl. You could say that this movie doesn't treat its female characters especially well, and that's certainly true of that character. What happens to her is pretty bad, but it's also kind of funny. I think as I read did a little bit of research and found out the movie initially got an X rating, and it's no wonder because the imagery in this is certainly overtly sexual. Plenty of erect penises and flaccid penises are all over the place in this thing. Some pretty funny gags involving that stuff, but mostly it's a lot of people just fighting, just arguing with each other. Michael doesn't get along with his parents. Well, he sort of gets along with them, but they don't get along with each other at all. His Jewish mother is sick of the philandering that his father does. His father is wants to, show what a macho Italian guy he is by banging all kinds of women and, getting respect from the neighborhood, whatever that means. And he doesn't like the fact that his son doesn't get it on with girls at all. He feels a bit of shame around that. So there's some conflict there. And Carol, the barmaid, isn't introduced until at least a half an hour into the movie. And it's a short movie too. It's only an hour and 10, hour and 15 minutes long. She winds up palling around with Michael for a while, and they concoct a couple of schemes that don't go so great. And he really doesn't treat her all that well. He doesn't treat her with a lot of respect. But she's a pretty good character. So I liked her for the most part. And though he invites sympathy at first, after a while he just seems as abusive as any other man in her life. What happens in the live action segment seems to kind of contradict that. And I'm wondering whether or not all the animated stuff that happened that makes up the bulk of the picture was basically just his fantasy. Or a fantasy gone wrong, something like that. It's a fantasy that kind of turns into a nightmare at one point. And it's at that point, at the end of the picture, he kind of snaps out of it and then goes to find the real Carol, the actual live-action flesh and blood Carol that isn't part of his fantasy. And the way it just wraps up is just I'm just thinking, what was the point of all that? I don't know. I'm glad I saw it. And I'm really glad I heard it as well, because there's a cover of Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel that's really, really cool. Scarborough Fair kind of goes by the Simon and Garfunkel. They sing it, "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" But this version is a little jazzier. It's like, "Are you going to Scarborough Fair?" And there's some strings there, and I love strings in pop music. So yeah. Matthew, thanks again for the recommendation. I'm glad I got a chance to see that. I didn't love it, but it sure was interesting. And there were some funny moments in it too. So as for the rest of you all, if you've got more 1973 movies you want to recommend, please leave me a comment. If you want to see what I've already done, there's a link in the description to a playlist where you will find all the videos that I've done so far in 1973 movies. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again real soon. Appreciate it, and have a good one.